Well, welcome everyone to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, not in a high tax bracket? Consider Roth IRAs. Part 2 of our series on tax advantage retirement means more spendable income with Tom Doncaster, registered financial consultant and retirement specialist. Welcome to the second segment, Tom.
Good to be here, Steve.
Roth IRAs. Now, we kind of talked about it at the trail end of the first segment. And we talked about the value of that. Now, let's just make sure we get caught up again.
Sure.
You talked about this thing, and I hardly ever hear anybody say this. This is why I'm very interested. We should be diversified in our mutual funds. Everybody kind of gets that. We shouldn't have everything in our bags, our eggs in one basket. I kind of get that. So we have a mix of mutual funds and ETFs, annuities, kind of a mixing it. But I don't know too many planners, as you are, who actually take the component of tax deferred, taxable, and tax-free. You will look at them all and say, we need to have a mix of everything, because it's going to matter when we come and take money out in distributions so we can manage taxation.
Correct.
So tell me, how did you come to this? Because you're one of the few guys that talk about it.
Well, it probably started coming to my mind as I started helping people over the last 30 years of how most of them were skewing their portfolio and taking advantage of all these pre-tax qualified accounts. And then we started calculating the pension on top of that, which I realized that they're getting less and less available out there. But still, anytime that you have IRA money, 401k, 403b, 457 pension money, that's all going to be pre-tax qualified. And eventually, the money has to come out, especially at 70 and a half when the RMD, required minimum distribution, comes out. And, the life expectancy tables that the IRS is using, they expect you to do from age 70 and a half to age 86, I think is the average life expectancy. So they would love to see the account depleted over that 16-year period. Problem is that since people are living quite a bit longer, most of us are still going to be around. What then?
Yeah, well, that's a problem. I think that's a real problem. You mentioned RMDs, required minimum distributions. When you meet with clients, are they all up to stuff that they even know about this?
The area that I live in, about half of them are, but the other half are totally oblivious. And even those that are aware of the RMD, they're not aware of what the factor does every single year as far as increasing.
So RMDs are really important to manage. If you're saying, Steve, I've never even heard of this, although, again, we talk about it on the show all the time. Required minimum distributions at 70, it's a big thing. You need to find out, sit down with your advisor, talk to Tom, somebody you need to talk to about RMDs are really important. You do not want to pay. How big is that penalty?
50%.
No way.
Yep.
50%. If you don't do this, you could lose half of the over if you didn't take enough out.
That's right.
That's really a problem. And I just want to just exhort you. This is a major issue of your retirement. Come 70, you're going to calculate all your qualified plans. And if you're not really up to stuff on this, you could be paying a terrible penalty. I'd hate to see any senior have to do that. Okay, so now on my Roth IRAs, we were talking about it as, hey, it's good for tax diversification. Yes, you don't get the deduction, but later on, it's tax-free, and it doesn't wind up on the provisional income test for Social Security, so it doesn't hurt your Social Security and it doesn't cause a trigger in taxation on your benefits.
That is correct.
So I like that.
Sure. Yeah.
But now you were talking about converting. Now let's say I have my qualified plan. And I have a big piece of it in an IRA. I was in a 401k. This is the traditional one I see.
Sure.
And they rolled it to an IRA.
Right.
Now they have their IRA. Now I really still have. I'm 60 years old, and I'm planning on at least going to age 66, which is full retirement age. But I might go to 70 because I'm trying to stall Social Security and push my qualified plans off if I can work and have income.
Correct.
All right. Now I agree with that. But now you said something about converting taxable qualified monies to Roth IRAs. Talk about that, because this is what this section really needs to really drill down to.
Sure. Well, in many cases, Steve, what I run into are individual business owners, small business owners like myself, like you, that are not planning on retiring at 66, 67, 68, 70, maybe not even until 75. And so they're figuring, because they enjoy what they're doing, whether they're going to do it on a full-time basis or a part-time basis, they're going to, in essence, not need some of that money because they're still going to be generating earned income. So the point or the question lies is, okay, you all know, because of the RMDs at 70 and a half, even though you're going to continue to keep working beyond that, what kind of an extra tax liability is that going to create on your federal income tax.
How big is it, though? I mean, people don't understand. This could be hurtful.
Yeah. Well, typically, if you're under about $65,000, you really don't have a whole lot to worry about. $65,000 of annual earned income. But once you cross over that threshold and reach 85 to 100, and especially when you go over 150,000,
Then it matters.
Oh yeah, that's when it really starts to hurt because alternate minimum tax kicks in. So what does that mean? That means you lose all your deductions. You know, you don't get your standard deductions anymore. Anything
Starts
that
phasing out.
everything phases out because that's the government's catch-all that says, okay, if we didn't catch it here on the lower levels, because you're highly compensated.
I've heard a rumor that President Trump's going to do away with AMT. He's going to drop us to 3 tax brackets, 12, 25, and 30. The standard deduction, there'll be no exemptions. It'll be one big 30,000. That's what you get. Depends upon your means testing for income for that.
Correct.
That could kind of change our planet, but maybe not enough.
A little bit, yes.
So yeah, not enough.
Not enough.
Okay,
That's right.
so I have this money here sitting here, and I have 10 years to make to move this to a tax-free position.
Correct.
But it doesn't come free now. So I want you to
Yes.
walk me through it now.
Sure.
I got an IRA. I saw the value of what you're saying at age 70. I want to convert some of this over to free money, but I have to pay a little. I have to take a little medicine here. I got to
is
pay
correct.
tax. So talk about it.
That's right. Well, as you do the conversion, you know, there's nothing that says you have to convert the whole IRA into a Roth. You can take it in portions, $20,000, $30,000, $50,000. Whatever that dollar amount is going to be different for everybody because number one, it's going to be based on whatever your tax bracket is.
Just let's stop there.
Okay.
Because they're here. Okay.
Sure.
So somebody, that advisor needs to figure out what your effective tax bracket is right up front.
That is correct.
And we got to see if there's any headroom, or is there any extra space there without bumping the client to another taxable event.
Exactly.
Now that's really important because people say, "Oh yeah, just go ahead and convert it." And I saw the case that's in arbitration right now that was converted over a 3-year period, and it pushed the client
Way
into
up there.
a top bracket, and it was totally unnecessary. You had tons of time to convert this.
Sure.
So brackets the first thing. We got to
Yes.
find out what that number is, and do I have any room?
That's right.
I say, okay, that's our first thing. Okay.
Yep. As I said in the earlier, the other segment, 10 years prior to retirement is more ideal than 5 years. But hey, it's whatever the individual wants to do.
Right.
But yes, as long as you can get that calculation, and like you said, using the term headroom right there, keep you under that next taxable rate is wise to do as much as possible.
Now, some of us are still working when we're doing this.
Yes,
Is that
I know.
okay?
Yeah, it is still okay, but we still got to do the numbers.
Calculation.
Exactly.
By the
yeah.
way, math and science rules this equation. I mean, you got to figure out, is this going to work or not?
Sure.
What did I pay during the conversion? Over the 5-10 year period, I had to pay taxes, extra one because I'm taking it out. But what did I save? Social Security.
That's right.
And the taxation of a qualified plan.
Correct.
You got to measure that out. And you said something for a second. I mean, we might actually be paying more taxes in retirement than we did when we were actually earners.
I'm seeing it right now. I've been seeing it now for the last 10 years now.
Well, that's a new paradigm. I'm sure our parents didn't think that.
The other thing that I think is also important is that, we're not the only financial advisor to the individual. They generally have a CPA or an accountant. So what I attempt to do is, coordinate with them, tell them what the plan is that we'd like to do, and then solicit their assistance in doing this every single year for that period of time that we're going to consider doing either a Roth conversion or some kind of non-qualified, type of a contract. And in some cases, insurance might be a good solution as well. So we look at all avenues. We just don't look at one. We're not one-dimensional, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Well, now, when we're thinking about tax brackets, I'm going to my CPA, and if I looked at my gross number, I'm oversimplifying this, and it doesn't apply to everybody, but if I took my deductions, my exemptions, and any tax credits putting back on the line, and I look at my modified adjusted gross income, I'm going to look at that and say, hey, you know what? That's what I'm paying.
Sure.
That's my number. That's what I'm paying. It's going to be a blended effective rate because we live in a progressive marginal tax bracket. That's our system. So let's say we agree with the math that we're going to do this. Now, I like your thing. You said, hey, why do it in 5? If you got a little more time, do it in 10.
Yes.
It'll be easier. The tax bite won't be as high.
That's correct.
And you have some time to build. Now, I've tried. I haven't been able to ever convert everybody's qualified plan by the time I hit 70. But I can get a good chunk of it done.
Yes.
In your experience dealing with people, are they okay with paying a little tax today and not paying it later?
There's a certain percentage that are, yes. I don't know whether it's 30, 40, or 50%, but yes. And I think it's always a good idea to bring that discussion to the table, and ultimately let the client decide, because they're in essence going to be the ones that are going to be paying it, not me.
Right, and of course we're looking to our advisors
That's right.
to do the math for us and say this is good science or it's not good science.
Exactly, yeah, that's right.
Well, listen, don't forget to watch part 3 of our series on tax advantage retirement means more spendable income. And we're going to be talking about health savings accounts. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counsel, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.